Welcome to Lead Smarter, Not Harder, your stop for how to stand out as a leader. I'm your host, Jason Davis, and this week, I'm joined by a great friend of mine, Chris Spurgeon, as we take a deep dive into problem solving. Not as a skill, but as an activity or a function of the business. You don't want to miss a second of this show. Let's go! All right. Well, wanted to get together today and really dive into a pretty hot topic here. Really wanted to talk about what managers should know about problem solving. I talk about this a little bit on LinkedIn, have talked about this with some guests in other podcasts. And, like I said, it's probably something that is more recognized as a skill and maybe not something that's recognized as a function or an event or something that needs to take place within an organization. So wanted to talk through that a little bit, excuse me, and, work through a little bit of how managers can kind of support that as a function or an activity. So to do that, I needed to bring in some expertise. So with me today, I've got Chris Spurgeon. Chris is actually a longtime friend of mine, but somebody that I think is uniquely qualified to talk about problem solving as a function and not just a skill. Chris is currently a lead continuous improvement consultant. Say that 5 times fast with Centerpoint Energy. And has been involved in process improvement and problem solving for at least the last 7 years now. So, Chris, say hello and fill us in on anything that I may have missed in your background.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jason. No, that's pretty good summary. What I do, I'm a continuous improvement consultant. So I lead continuous improvement projects, events, if you will, workshops. Do some coaching too. CI, so training other people to lead other projects and events. Problem solving, I think, is an important topic for managers to understand. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the best way to go about problem solving that really some folks can develop some bad habits as a result. And so I think if you learn just a few simple tools and kind of change your perspective a bit, you can really change your culture and start to see serious improvements and really address your problems.
Great. Awesome. All right. And so where does this podcast find you today? Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Mount Vernon, Indiana, here at my home office.
From your home in Mount Vernon, Indiana. All right. It's in the southwestern area there, right?
Yeah. So if Indiana looks like a foot, I'm in the tip toe of it, right next to Evansville. Evansville is probably where people would know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if you're like any further north of Indianapolis, you just don't go there. So,
right.
All right. So you talked a little bit about your role as a continuous improvement consultant. Got that right this time. So thinking about problem solving, again, what's your personal connection to the topic? Passionate about it? Help us out a little bit there.
Yeah, well, I'm passionate about continuous improvement and the mindset that brings with that. And, a big component of that is problem solving and how you identify problems and then how you go about addressing them and finding root cause. And so that's what I do in my roles. I lead structured problem solving events. We have a 7-step process that we take our teams through. So it's just a structured format that you can lead a group of experts through. And that's what I do.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think that's a really good segue into kind of just starting with an overview of problem solving. And you mentioned it a little bit, problem solving being a component of continuous improvement, or CI as a lot of people refer to it, or people that are in it refer to it anyway. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What makes good problem solving so important?
Right. So, a lot of times you hear in corporate culture, especially from managers, they'll talk about, that they're busy putting out fires all day. And when we try to work into a new area and work with new managers on continuous improvement, often one of the responses we get back is, we really don't have time to do these continuous improvement, these CI events, in addition to our normal work. We're so swamped, we're behind, we got all these issues. I'm putting out fires every day. I don't have time for your CI. And what I'm really hearing is you don't have time to not do CI. You're putting out fires. You're not stopping the bleeding. You're just patching things up. And so problem solving is really about seeing those problems as opportunities to make improvements within your process. But to do that, it does take an investment. You've got to stop the process and do the work of making the improvements first before you continue on. You've got to stop passing on defects. You've got to stop the process that's creating all of these issues, and then take the time to make the improvements. And I think that's what we get wrong a lot in corporate culture is those, managers, high performers, especially, right? Like you're eager to prove yourself and to be the problem solver. You want to save the day. Everyone wants to be the hero. And so you'll stay late, to fix that report or do the manual tweaking that it needs to get things right for the next day, or to fix the errors, that came out or whatever, and kind of sweep your problems under the rug, and you're the hero. Nobody knows better, but that's not helpful, right? Because those same problems are going to come the next time you run that report, the next time. And so what you really need to do is just stop and see that problem as an opportunity to get your team together and address it.
Yeah, no, I like that. I want to dive into that a little bit, right? And you hit on like stop the process, right? Like literally hitting the stop button. Like if you're on a factory or, an assembly line somewhere, you're literally hitting the stop button.
Pull land on course, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It sounds expensive, and it probably is sometimes, but thinking about the cost of continuing to put out defects or, a higher rate of defects than what might be possible by not hitting that is something that's, you're ignoring there. So kind of thinking about it from that manager, that leader's perspective, how do they go about doing that? What are some ways that they can kind of go out saying, all right, we're going to stop doing this. Or we're going to change a little bit of how we might be going about problem solving before. How are we going to, how might they go about and say, all right, we're going to stop what we're doing real quick and take a better look at this? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, you see the first is seeing the problem as an opportunity, right? And getting excited about it. It's not a bad thing. We're not getting anybody in trouble. What I say is Kaizen people, not or Kaizen processes, not people. So you put the focus where it needs to be, first of all, and then you're going to empower your subject matter experts, the people that are doing the process, doing the work every day. Those are the folks that know how to fix this, that know where your problems are to begin with. And you get them in a room, you physically get them in a room. And I know that's hard to do these days with COVID. So, we've done virtual rooms. You can get them in a virtual room, but it's got to be the people that are doing the work. It can't be your managers. It can't be your supervisors. It can't be your trainers. It's got to be the people that are actually doing the work every day. Because what isn't helpful is to go in there and learn about how we're training people to do the process, or learning about how they're supposed to do the process. What we need to learn about is how they're actually doing the process today. And so that's why you need to get those folks in the room to solve it. They'll be able to tell you what's wrong and shine the light on your problems.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think it really helps to get away from, people solving problems at a very high level without actually talking to the people that are doing the work. Yeah. And then you've got the people on the front line saying, well, they have no idea what I do. Right. Or they didn't even ask.
It's great, right? You're doing your job one day, and then, the next day your boss comes along and says, hey, from now on, we want you to start doing this instead. Cool. Why? Don't worry about that. We figured that out in a back room somewhere, and this is going to be better for everyone, and just do it this way. And people don't buy into that. They don't like it. They don't feel like it's more efficient. They've got to be part of the process and see the big picture and how their part plays. And, if they pass on a defect to the next stage, them understanding the consequences of that is going to make a different culture in your workplace. It's people are going to feel like they're part of the team. They're going to understand their part in it. And that's part of changing that mindset. And that's a big part of addressing your problems, right? Is getting your team members to have that mindset of wanting to fix things and wanting to make things easier for their coworkers, down the value stream.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit it, you spoke to it anyway, the buy-in, right? Getting buy-in from the employees and in a CI environment or an environment that is installing CI, which, is kind of my experience with continuous improvement is being an environment that was installing it. You got to have a lot of buy-in because it is a large kind of complicated process to kind of start from, all right, we weren't doing any of this before, or we were maybe doing these things, but not doing it, in the kind of recorded, systemic fashion to now, hey, we've got these huddles all the time. I've got my numbers on the board that everybody on the floor can see, we're talking about our problems every day, which is pretty cool. But again, it takes time. I think there's a lot of buy-in, like you said, that has to occur there.
Yeah. And, when you talk about CI culture, you've got to plant seeds, right? It's not like a plug and play, to your point, right? Where we're going to say, hey, we're going to implement CI today. Everybody, here's your new jobs. Put that over there. Now we're lean. It's a culture. It's organic. It won't be sustained. You'll get, those project level wins, but you won't get that culture win. Right. And so you've got to plant seeds in your organization and let them grow organically, let them develop their huddle boards. Don't just come in as management one day with a big board up and say, let's talk about this from now on every day, So grow with them. But then, the other part, so once you've got those folks empowered, right, and you're going to bring them together and you do your huddle boards or whatever tool you want to use to start looking at your problems and starting that conversation, you want to make sure that you're then going to measure your success, right? And so you talked about, the value of bringing people together, and it's expensive. There are tons of books and case studies written about the value of lean. It is proven its worth. That said, you still need to measure the success of each project, but it shouldn't be how many dollars are we saving, right? Certainly shouldn't be how many people you can reduce, right? If you're improving people out of a job, they're not going to help you too much longer. It's got to be performance metrics and things that they care about. What are their headaches? What are their problems? Processing time, things like that, defects, and measure the improvements on those and keep checking against those measures. That's the other part of continuous improvement, right? Is if it doesn't work the first time, that's okay. That doesn't mean you failed. That's part of the process. You're going to fail. Expect that. Set that expectation. You got to keep going then after that. It's continuous improvement, not one-time perfection, right? You got to keep going.
Yeah, I like that. A couple of things you said I'll back up on. So one, the measuring their success and then attaching that to results that they care about. In the broader scope, employees at a company care about sales. They care about revenue. They care that the company is doing well and in a broad way, right? But, they can solve a problem and they don't see the impact in those numbers, right? Or they don't see the change in those numbers. And I think that's kind of where you were going with make the things you're measuring, things that they care about. They can see that they're already being measured against.
They can control too.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's got to drive action, the measures, the metrics that you're keeping an eye on, right? If all you're doing is getting together in front of a board every day, and no matter what the number says, just going, all right, team, break. And everybody goes and does their job like normal. If it's the things you're looking at aren't driving a conversation that's then going to change your action through the day. Okay, guys, we got a problem here. Let's talk about how to address it. What do we do to improve this number? It's got to be something that's going to drive action in how they do their jobs. So then they can control it and improve it.
Yeah, definitely. And a little while ago, you'd mentioned empowerment, and it reminded me of, again, kind of when I was seeing and going through a little bit of CI installment and getting to watch, frontline employees sit in problem solving sessions and just how engaged they were. And just, and I talk a lot about employee engagement on this show, and they had talked about just how much more it felt them or it connected them to the environment. It just seemed like a very positive, kind of thing from the employee's standpoint as well. What do you see there? How does that look? How does that look from your end?
Yeah, so at the end of each day of workshops, we do a plus delta exercise. Pluses, things that they feel like went well, deltas, things that maybe we can improve upon for the next day or next session or whatever. And inevitably in every single project team, one plus that always comes up is the value they got in learning about other people's jobs and other roles. And, hey, I never really understood what they did over there. I always handed it off to them, but I didn't know what they did with it. Now it makes a lot more sense now. I really appreciate getting to understand that. So that's the feedback we always get, from the folks that are in it, that, yeah, knowing your place in the world kind of helps you kind of understand your value too, and how you can contribute to the bigger picture.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. All right, it's a pretty good overview. Let's move in a little bit and talk about managers really encouraging and supporting problem solving. So thinking about it from that point of view, what do they need to know? What should they be looking for?
Well, so first of all, you've got to start knowing what a problem is, right? And that, I think, is sometimes difficult. In fact, I just got an email from a department reaching out. They learned about continuous improvement, and so they want to start continuous improvement, and they're like, we don't know where to start. What do we do? And I'm like, well, you got, step one is you got to identify what your problems are. And if you don't know what your problems are, that's your first problem, right? Like, let's dive into that. So why don't we know what our problems are? Do we know what we're doing? Do we have an idea of what we're contributing, what we're trying to do? What our voice of the customer is, what our customer is wanting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So understanding your value, right? And what your value add is, right? And so that's step one. And then two is seeing where your waste and problems are. So what's a good day and what's a bad day for you? What do your customers, internal or external customers, what are they wanting? What do they value? What do they not value? And then look for that. So once you've got, things that you're going to measure that matter to you, your performance measures identified, set targets, identify gaps, areas that you want to improve in, and you dive in there. I mean, that's it. You don't have to know when you start the process, right? You don't have to know what the root cause is or what the solution is going to be. And that's creates a lot of uneasiness amongst managers. Like, they hate that. They hate going into a project without a plan and knowing where they're going with it, but if you have a process, if you're going to use lean, continuous improvement, tools, PDCA cycle, anything to do that, just trust your process and stick to it, and know that you don't have to have, in fact, you shouldn't have the answer going into it. If you already have the answer, don't waste everybody's time,
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of, and what I used to kind of help people, ran into the same thing in a call center situation. Managers, again, I don't know what problems we should be solving, or, but it's, they've gotten themselves into such a routine where somebody comes and asks them a question, they just answer it. Right. Mm-hmm. And they don't really kind of think about it as a problem. And then we just kind of stop them and say, well, what are the top 5 things that people come to your desk and ask you? Yeah. And write that down. And there you go. You got 5 things now that you can go figure out. Why are people coming to ask me this? This many times, and start thinking about it that way. And just, again, get very, very simple. And it's like, it doesn't have to be the company's highest problem, right?
That's why I like the question, what's a good day and what's a bad day for you?
Yeah.
Start there. And so for that call center supervisor, bad day is going to be when they're hounded with questions all day. Right? Like, okay, let's talk about that. Yeah. What are those questions? Is there something we can do to proactively provide that information to where they don't have to come to you anymore to get it? What's the root cause for them getting up and coming over to you? And let's stop answering the questions and address that root cause.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Right. What's that root cause? What's the root cause of them coming over to ask you something? Is it information, just lack of knowledge? System problem, it could be a range of things, that's within or without not their control. So,
yeah. And it does take, then a certain level of leadership empowerment, right? Like, you need your leadership to empower people to say, stop answering the questions and solve it, take time to solve it, and so it takes both. You've got to have your subject matter experts involved, right? They're going to have the answers, but it takes your leadership understanding that they need that empowerment to solve your problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes depending on the environment, it's tough, right? Project-based environment, you've got a little bit of time and flexibility where you don't have to immediately come up with something. Maybe, excuse me, call center, you might have a customer on the phone or somebody that you've got to respond to or react to very quickly. So you've got to have a temporary solution and then figure out, all right, what's how do we figure out what the long-term kind of correction or fix to this might be? So,
yeah, I mean, in specifically in that call center environment, I've had a call center director, we've talked about, they were, their service levels, they were struggling, right? And so they couldn't allow the people off the phone to come to the CI event, and I'm like, dude, come on, like you understand why they need to be in the event if you're struggling to hit your service levels, right? Like this chicken and egg thing, and he's like, no, I get it, Chris, but let's think outside the box here. He's like, I'll pay overtime for them to come in on a Saturday and work with you when the call center's closed. Like I get it. It's worth the time. It's worth the investment. I just need them on the phone today. And so, I get, you've got to balance that, with your daily business needs, but then think creatively and be willing to make an investment, because it is worth it and it will pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. Competing priorities. Yeah. Always get in the way.
Yeah.
Always get in the way. So what are some of the best ways that a manager can create a culture of problem solving?
So the best way is by, giving your employees a platform to talk about the problems. And we kind of touched on earlier, visual management huddles, but those are great tools. If you can measure what matters to people on those and have meaningful metrics up there that you can talk about on a daily basis, that's going to drive action, it's going to be the stuff that people care about. Then taking 15 minutes at the start of your day or once a week or something to bring your employees around that, to talk about that and what they're doing, that'll pay off. That's going to create that culture. It's going to create some brainstorming. People will feed off each other, and it's just going to help change that employee mindset where they start looking for these opportunities to do things. If all you're doing is just coming to work every day and sitting down and doing your work, it may never occur to you that, hey, is there something I can do to make this better? And so then you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to make improvements if you're not actually making that effort to do it.
Yeah, I like that. So if I understand you right, so, kind of using those team meetings or those huddle and those opportunities as opportunities to talk about either from a leader standpoint or employee standpoint, hey, this is what I encountered. This is what I'm struggling with, or not hitting my numbers here. I think it opens up a wide range of things if I understood you correctly. For
sure. Yeah. And it should be a two-way dialogue, right? Like both ways. So stuff that's important to management should be on there, to communicate to the team, what they're seeing, the metrics that they're measuring and talking about with them, how those are performing. And it should go the other way then too, things that are important to the employees that they need to know from their management, things that they feel like they need to do their job and they want to communicate to them. And so it should be a two-way sort of communication on those huddles going both ways.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It gives a manager a way to kind of look at a result or something that's happening and just ask like, hey, what's happening here? Is there anything that's going on that you might need some support with? Right. That I might be able to help you with, that somebody else on the team might be able to help you with. And I think it's great. It's more of a team conversation rather than one-on-one, because it gives other people on the team an opportunity to say, hey, I ran into that too. This is how I got around that. I think it kind of creates a little bit of that teamwork as well.
Yeah. And I'll say, these can work in any environment at any level, too. Like, typically you think of these in a manufacturing setting, right? When you do shift changes and things, you'll meet around a huddle board, and that's great. It works for those too, but it also works in service industries like we were talking about earlier, call centers. It can work in your accounting department too. It can work in your HR department, as you're trying to work through those interviews and get folks onboarded right now, which I know is tough. It doesn't, as long as there's a process, right? These tools can be applied to it.
Yeah. That's great. So you mentioned it earlier, seeing problems as opportunities. So let's dig into that a little bit further. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, well, we were talking earlier about, the problems are fires that need to be put out, right? They're bad. It's a bad thing. And that's, you need to change your script on that. Problems are good things. They're opportunities for you to get better. If you don't see your problems, like I said earlier, that's your problem, right there. So seeing your problems means that you're seeing your opportunities for improvement, and you're going to be able to continuously improve them.
Right. So removing the negative stigma, or the stigma that problems are bad, problems shoved under the rug, or just quickly solved for, right? And let me make sure that nobody kind of finds out about this. I think I mentioned this to you when we were doing kind of a pre-chat, like at an old job of mine. A good day for me was keeping my boss's desk clear of my problems. Like that used to be how I kind of evaluated a good day for me. We spoke about that a little bit earlier too. It was a total wrong way of going about that, right? Because I probably either had to fix or do a lot of things that were either repetitive, that might have been able to be solved at a different level, or it just didn't get the attention that may have had it needed because they were getting fixed in some other way. I was just trying to keep her desk clean. That was basically it.
Right. And so your boss, what, she needed to do is come to you, when her desk was clean, be like, Jason, what's going on? What are the problems here? What are we working on? What are we trying to improve? And if you're not trying to improve something, then you're going out of business. Frankly, that's how, you're either improving or going out of business. It's one or the other.
Absolutely. So, I guess to that point, and, we spoke about that a little bit earlier, so time is precious and we can't solve every problem. Yeah. So what's a good way to start thinking about prioritizing problems, or how can managers start to prioritize things that come their way? Because there's certainly got a lot of problems coming at them daily, some new, some old. So how do they start to work through that?
Yeah, it's crazy when I'm working with a team for the first time, right? It's like their first CI event that they've had. So it's their first time where they're really having that opportunity for empowerment to address things, and they get really excited and they want to fix everything, like, and so there's no, short of ideas on things to implement. But then I remind them, I'm like, hey guys, so just remember, there's not like a second project team that's hanging out in the wings that's going to swoop in and implement all of this for us. We're the ones that have to do all the work and implementation after these workshops too. Still, in addition to your job every day. So, let's keep that in mind. We don't have unlimited resources here, right? It's just us doing this. So what can we do? And so, one way that we think about that is, with an impact and effort matrix. So you want to look for that low hanging fruit, that stuff that's low effort and high impact, like that stuff. Put every single one of those on a to-do list somewhere and start knocking those off. If you've got something up there that, ends up being a high effort to implement, but it's really just not going to have that big of impact, that we put that, what we call the kill zone. Like there's no way, no how that's getting done. We're not going to do a whole lot of work for a small change. And the other thing to keep in mind, so when you're doing that exercise, then when we talk about impact, right, what do we mean? Impact to what? And that's where we go back to those performance metrics. What are you measuring? Yeah. How do you measure the problem that you're solving? And so you want to think about, that action item, that improvement item, what sort of impact is it going to have on that metric? How much is it going to move the needle? And if it's not going to have an impact on that metric, what is it improving? Why do you think that's impactful? Like, knock it off, get it out of there. It's low impact, Yeah. Or go back and have another conversation about what you should be measuring. If you've identified, no, we really need to do this, even if it doesn't move the needle here, then you're probably missing a metric somewhere. And you need to think about what you're measuring and think about why that's important to your organization to make that improvement. What is that going to improve for you?
Yeah. And I feel like for the most part, people's natural reaction is just to fix things that are coming at them, and not thinking about that impact versus effort. Is it truly, a metric that we care about, or is it going to move the needle on a metric that we care about or has value, or is it, something of little value, and kind of going through that process a little bit. And, even like you said, kind of thinking about that low hanging fruit. If there's something that's high impact, low effort, like go, just start going after it, like figure out ways to make that happen. We used to call those just do it, basically.
Yeah. That's what we call them that too, and I'm like, let's not wait, and it's cool. Like I've seen, in a workshop, like a 3-day workshop, right? And we'll identify something, on day 2 or whatever. And we're not even getting to the part where we're prioritizing things yet. But, the idea is maybe to, send a reminder out to this group about this thing, or something. And, there'll be a guy and we'll talk about, he'll be like, oh, I've already done that. Mark that one off. I sent that email yesterday. He's like, I figured, why not? Right? Like, what harm's that going to do to go ahead and just send that reminder? And we're like, yeah, no, that's great. Keep
yeah.
Way to go.
Medium impact, low effort, right? If all was a reminder, so
way low effort. And yeah, what the crazy thing is that, that did work, right? We saw an immediate impact, it moved the needle instantly. Like the next day, it was one of those things. Now that may not be a long-term sustainable improvement, right?
Yeah.
It was a one-time reminder. So maybe the, more sustainable effort was, setting up some regular trainings or things like that to make sure that we don't lose sight of that again. But, the point is, right, don't hesitate to implement. Once you've got an idea, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. It may have a high impact to getting you to kind of the next step that you need to get to, right? I think it's rare that you're going to have a high impact, low effort item that's going to move mountains for you. If you've been in business for a while, or you've been doing your stuff for a while, you've probably plucked those. You'll find them every once in a while, but they're rare. They're going to be more probably foundational to get you to that next step, kind of thing. So
yeah, they're fewer and far, but I tell you what, when you get those, it's like hitting a freaking home run. Like it's an amazing feeling, and you do still get those every now and then. I had just earlier this year. I think it was this year. It's been a long year. It was earlier this year. I was working with a team, and we had a 40-year field tech veteran on the project team. And we were looking at our maintenance plans and how we go out and service these sites. And our maintenance plans, would generate automatically every year, some service orders, work orders to go out and have the maintenance performed on them.
Okay.
The problem with that is, we're visiting the same site 2, 3, 4 different times to do different types of maintenance for different orders, and so we're looking, is there a way in the process where when you get a work order, you can check the maintenance plan to pick up other work orders that may be out there and do them all at once? How could we do this? And this Vince, this 42-year field tech guy, says, well, the different work orders, all that is just a number in a field. It's a 1 for this type of work order, or 2 for this type. He's like, why don't you just, give me a 6 in there and tell me that that's a combo, and I'll do those 2, both of them. And we're like, oh, well, yeah, why don't we do that? Let's make some new combo work order number types, and we were able to find a way to script those changes, so even implementing it was pretty, relatively speaking, low effort, and the impact's going to be freaking just huge. And it's all the events, it wasn't some IT genius in the is our 42-year field tag going, guys, just put a 6 in there instead of a 1 and tell me that a 6 is a combo. Oh, you got it.
Yeah. And that really highlights the value of having people that are doing the actual job in the room, in the conversations, and empowering them to be a part of the conversation, empowering them to be problem solvers, making them the experts, really. They're the ones that are doing the job every day, and the leaders in the room are really there to one, protect their time, right? Protect time to make sure that they've got time to problem solve, I think is a great way for leadership to represent, and to, to help escalate the issue to different areas of the organization where they can to get support, right? If you've got to go to IT for something, frontline in sales is probably not going to know where to go to in IT to get that script written. Right. But a leader's got the time to kind of figure that out a little bit. So I think that's a great way for, again, to create that empowerment and create that buy-in, let the front line really dig in and help problem solve. And you got to win there, right? You got the field tech that's been doing this for 40 years saying, hey, this is what I see and what I know. Like, if you just change this, I know to do this now,
Yeah. It was, the simplicity was brilliant of it. And yeah, to your point that, like we didn't have, the skill set on that project team in the room to write that script, and so that was the leadership role then. So they come in, they support that project team, they show up in the room, and see what they've done. And so then they get buy-in, they buy into the improvements, and they understand how putting a 6 in there is going to save a whole bunch of waste. Yeah. And so then they help us get those resources to get that implemented. And that, you're right, that's leadership's role is empowering them and then clearing the obstacles to help get things implemented smoothly.
Yep, exactly. No, I love the way you put that. So, all right. So if you could let's get really simple here. So what are 3 simple things that people listening to the show, the audience, that they could do to be better problem solvers tomorrow?
Okay. The big 3 takeawaways, right? Like, forget everything we've said. These are the things that matter.
You could skip to minute 40. I'll put
just skip to minute 42, and then they get to the meat and potatoes. Problems are opportunities. We've already talked about all of this, but that's the number one thing. You've got to quit just bearing your problem, and freaking out about your problems, and start looking for your problems, searching them out, and seeing them as your opportunities. You want to know how to improve, find your problems. That's got to be step 1. And then step 2, we talked about empower the subject matter experts, the people that actually do the work. Quit trying to solve all the problems yourself, sitting at a desk or in a conference room. Go to where the work is being done, talk to the people that are doing the work and ask them, get them involved. They're going to be the ones that are able to find that low-hanging fruit that we talked about. And then the third thing to keep in mind when problem solving is to don't give up. You've got to know, measure your success to know what success looks like. And then don't give up until you get there. If you try a countermeasure and it doesn't work or it causes more problems somewhere else, then address that and keep trying. There's that plan, do, check, and adjust cycle that continuous improvement follows. Mm-hmm. And it really is just a continuous cycle of doing just that, continuously improving. And I feel like I brought it all home there. I feel like that's perfect.
Yeah, that all worked. Yeah. So just to recap that, that was awesome. So seeing problems as opportunities, that's 1. Number 2, empowering your subject matter experts, the people that are doing the work. And then number 3, don't give up. Measure your success.
Yeah, I think that, if you do those 3 things, I don't see how you're going to fail. Like you're going to get there eventually. So
you heard it there. That is a guarantee.
Money back guarantee.
Money back guarantee. All right. Well, on that note, Chris, where can people find you? Mount Vernon, Indiana.
They could find me in Mount Vernon for sure. It's a small town. You could probably, just ask around and somebody point you in my direction. But LinkedIn might be a more convenient way. I've got a profile out there. You can message me through LinkedIn. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to talk about lean. It's one of my favorite subjects. So I'm never shy to hop on a chat or something to talk about continuous improvement. It's a fun passion. And, we talk about, identifying those, as what's a bad day for you. Right. And that's what gets me passionate about it too, is, I'm helping people have better days, right? We're going to make your job easier. And hopefully then maybe you look forward to coming to work a little bit more, improve your quality of life a bit. And in addition, we're going to make some money for your company, right? Or save you some costs. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, any final thoughts? All good?
No, that was it. Those were them.
All right. That was it. All right. Those were them. Perfect. All right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time today. You've been an awesome guest. Like I said, I think you've given us a lot of really good things to think about, a lot of easy things that I think managers and people can think about and do to help be better problem solvers, and to really bring that, again, as more of a function to their team and not so much of just a skill. It's an important skill to have, but the event and going through it is important as well, and to do that together. So thanks for bringing that to light. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have you back again sometime.
Yeah, thanks. I would love to.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, man.
See ya.